Do you mean to frighten me like that?
No. Well, maybe not. I am disappointed that you didn't share with me the news.
There's not much to share. No one has fucked me. I don't have a husband. I'm alone here with this child. I'm simply a vessel for him. He'll be gone before I even realize he was ever here.
The people are waiting for him. I am too. I think you are perfect for this, Asal. You always wanted to be a mother. It was all we would talk about when you were a girl. You would bundle some rabbit and cradle it in your bed. Your father would be so angry.
Motherhood has always appealed to me. Thinking of a bouncing baby one day would make me so happy, regardless of whatever my father thought.
Watching you be so passionate about it, I think it would occasionally appeal to me too.
Remember when you would say you would perform the circumcision?
That offer still stands. May I touch him? Already a strong child, he will save thousands. A drought will wipe out so many 20 years from now. But he will help the poor, and you, as his mother, will be spared.
I better be. This pregnancy hasn't been easy. I would want something out of it, even if that's just my life.
What about this place? It's beyond wonderful up here, so light and clear. You were gifted this. You can spend eternity amongst this complete serenity. Aren't you happy?
I don't want to be alone. I feel trapped up here, Nishat. I've been abandoned by everyone I've ever known, and this child will leave one day too. You of all people should understand that I've been cursed with this life. Live alone and die alone.
Asal, you are not alone. You have me.
I have you, only whenever it's convenient for you to come visit me. I wait months and years just to see your faces and wings in my reflection again. And every time you don't appear, even when I weep for you, and it shatters my spirit more and more. One day you will come to me and I will no longer be the person you remember.
You wouldn't like it where I live. It's nowhere near as warm, as bright. You don't have this view, this tranquility. Asal, we simply aren't meant to be together like others, but you don't know how much I would give in order to stay here with you always. You've absolutely lost your mind up here if you could ever think I wouldn't remember you. I would know and understand you blind and deaf, Asal. I would know your voice, your smell. At the end of the world, all I will think of will be you. Your skin drips with honey, my beloved. You think I could forget that?
I know you could never forget me. We share too much history, and my love for you seems so infinite that it just keeps expanding. One day, it will be as big as your wings, and it will just eat the universe raw. I just hate how I long for you, how I wait for your eyes and my reflection. I wish you would always be there.
I have a long life. One day, I will join you up here in these mountains, where we will be safe. We will watch your son save everyone, and we will be happy.
Yes, and we can take walks in the forest and find rocks to bury like I would when I was a little girl.
And we will pick flowers as well. What are you thinking?
That I'm so happy when I'm here with you, and how I wish you could stay with me for when the child is born.
I will watch over you, and I will come and visit, remove his skin, and maybe even babysit when you want to sleep.
That would be the dream, wouldn't it?
Although my eyes have seen so much, the only thing I would ever want is to be buried here with you forever.
You say that now, but you'll live for eternities. What will come of us when I'm an old lady, and how far will you follow me?
You know the answer.
I'm excited.
Me too.
He's upset. He must be hungry. It's not time for his birth.
No, it isn't. You still have a few more days. I have to leave.
Will you be back? Don't tell me this is the last time.
Someday soon, my beloved. Look for my reflection. Honey.
She left her burqa at Karachi airport when she boarded the plane. And she felt very strange when she landed in London. She felt as if she was naked, in her own words. But she's had to leave it because not many women wear the burqa in England.
My country hearkens for me. Why should I waste my time here in the Security Council? I'm going.
मिस्टर भुट्टो की हुकूमत ख़त्म हो चुकी है। सारे मुल्क में मार्शल लॉ नाफिज कर दिया गया है। कौमी और सूबाई असम्बलियाँ तोड़ दी गई हैं। सूबाई गवर्नर और वजीर हटा दिए गए हैं। अलबत्ता आइन को मनसूख नहीं किया गया है। इसके बाद हिस्सों पर अमल दरामद रोक लिया गया है। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला खातिमुन नबिय्यीन।
Oh, you startled me, Ghazala.
Yuri.
Oh, do you know what time it is? Go back to your room.
I can't sleep. I tried, but sleep won't come. My brain feels off, like it's made of pudding. I wanted to see if anyone else was up.
No, your brain feels like pudding because you're not sleeping. Okay? You know sleep is healthy for you. It helps your mind process everything that has happened to you throughout the day.
I just can't do it. I feel sick. My stomach keeps dropping, like I keep falling down a tree.
Well, you can come talk with me for a bit if you want. Not that I have anything interesting to say. I'm exhausted. I can't sleep either. I used to get anxious when I was your age too. Especially in my lower stomach. Like bugs were eating my intestines. It would be so painful.
Has it gone away?
If I'm being honest, I can't tell. Maybe I'm just too tired to notice now, or just too distracted from everything that's been happening. What has been going on in your life? I mean, how old are you? Should you really be feeling this anxious? You haven't even experienced anything awful yet.
I just keep thinking about things that happened to me when I was young. Bad things that happened to me that I somehow forgot about. Now that I remember, I don't know what to do with that information.
What kind of bad things? Well, if it's any consolation, the first bad thing in my life happened when I was your age. Oh, when we are young, we have the tendency to overreact. Looking back at it now, it was so silly. I was a foolish young girl.
What happened?
I fell in love with somebody who didn't end up being a good person. The same boring story of youth.
You were in love once, but you're not married?
Yes, I was madly in love. I wanted to marry them, but we both knew it was unreasonable. However, I wanted that more than anything. But they broke me. They broke the remains of my young heart, a heart that, despite its terrible upbringing, was hopeful and ready to grow. They ripped away all the happiness in my youth, and although that was so long ago, I wonder how or if I ever recovered. Sometimes I feel like I didn't.
Do you still talk to her?
I've tried to, but I'm a bitter person, Ghazala. Whenever I run into them, I think about our past and my stunted heart aches like it once did. After she left, I thought I may never find love again. But that's when I met my potential husband. We never ended up getting married. Our families planned it, but then they didn't allow it. We found out we were fooling around together before the wedding. I had fun with him. But a part of me was using him to ease my heart. That all changed though when I got pregnant.
You had a baby?
No. It died by the 3rd month. But I loved it as if it were real. So I got pregnant with him again. But that baby died too. And I had 3 more miscarriages until I couldn't take it anymore. I fell in love with each of those children and they were ripped away from me too.
I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about, child. You weren't even born. That's the reason I live here with your family. They feel bad for me. Sometimes on late nights like these, I wonder if those bugs in my stomach as a child were my body's way of warning me of what was to come. My spirit was trying to show me that I am not cut out for love, since every time it would happen to me, I wouldn't be able to handle it when it was taken. The first time I fell in love, I thought I had everything I needed, and I did. But how do you keep going on when you know what you are missing, but know you can never have it? Anyway, my dear, don't stress too much with your pudding brain. This is just the beginning of a lifelong struggle of suffering.
I don't think I'll be able to stand that.
You will. We all have to deal with it.
But I refuse to. I can't live like this forever, Auntie. Wandering the halls late at night and smoking in abandoned rooms and thinking about the bad thing that's happened to me. Surely there's something good waiting for me.
I see. You do not understand. We are not at fault for the bad things that happen to us. At least not in your case.
I don't want to talk about it.
Very well. I want you to be okay though, okay? I have too many worries in my life, darling. Will I have to add you to the list?
I should try and go back to sleep. Auntie, thank you for speaking with me.
Shab bakhair, my love. May you find some rest. Oh, fucking hell, Zal! Oh, God, you scared the hell out of me!
Sorry, I didn't know you were out.
These days I'm always out, no? I can't even remember the last time we saw each other. Shouldn't you be asleep? The sun will come up soon.
I couldn't sleep. I went to go talk to Roshanak, Auntie. She's watching TV in the other room.
God, that bad case. I've never, ever understood what her deal is. What are you still doing here? Get a move on, take your orange.
I just can't sleep. I feel weird. My head feels clogged and the feeling just won't go away.
Do what everyone else does.
What's that?
I know we aren't allowed to, but drinking really does help. It shouldn't be outlawed. Yeah, in this day and age, though, who knows what will happen to us? These fucking mullahs are loving this government. One thing they are missing, though, is the feeling you get after drinking after a long day. You see, Zal, ever since I was a teenager, I haven't been able to feel my hands. Like every day I would wake up and feel as if my limbs were disattached from my body, like I was a puppet with a master. And then I realized after some time, though, that the only way to fix that would be with the heat from alcohol. When you drink, your face burns up and your whole body is drizzled with sweat, and that heat goes all the way down to your fingertips, and finally, just for a moment, I have my hands back. One day you will be like all of us, Zal. Me, Roshanak, our mother. We are all just shells of the people we were meant to be, shells with rotting brains and ticking hearts.
That's absolutely terrible, Riz. Why would you tell me this?
Because you need to know! Because there's no point in lying! Not in this climate, at least.
Well, Roshanak says I'll be okay, so.
She says that, yet she's far from it. Yeah, I know her miscarriages fucked her up, but she's been like this since she was young. She couldn't handle being used by her lover for sexual gratification. And now is a shell of a person she once was. This is why you never fall in love, Zal. It is always more painful than it is loving. Everyone just wants to fuck and be fucked. And if you can't handle that, then you might as well take a hammer to your head.
Oh, I'm assuming you've never been in love before.
I speak only from experience, my dear. I'm just like Roshanak, which is why I'm so hard on her. Not that any of that matters anyway. Look, once my mandatory service is done, I'll get Unni and Abu to find me my wife, and I'll have domestic mediocrity for the rest of my life. It's only fair to everyone involved.
So that's why you drink.
That's why I'm an alcoholic, Zal. You know a lot of alcoholics, Zal. All the older girls in your dance class, Zal. Everyone knows what that Guruji does in his spare time. I see. Have you talked to the other girls about it?
Is there any point? Like you said, we all know, and we're forbidden to mention it.
Once again, that is why I'm an alcoholic, Zal, and why you will be one day too. Acha, Ada do, mujhe give me half of that, huh? Don't underestimate the elixir of our devastation. Oranges and booze. That's all you need to get through.
I'm gonna try and get some sleep. Will you be here in the morning?
Probably not. Pakistan Zindabad!
Shab Bakhir, Riz.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Why do you cry, my child?
I'm just so tired. I just want to sleep.
Oh, what keeps you awake?
Everything. Everything that's happening in this country, everything that's out in the open, and everything that's behind closed doors. I don't know how I'm supposed to manage this for the rest of my life. I hate feeling like this. Like, I'm constantly falling down an abyss. Like, I'm a drowning doll with damp tissue paper replacing my brain. It all hurts a lot, and I really want to break.
I see. And you haven't found your comfort.
I think the worst part is that I have found it, and it just doesn't make it feel any better.
I understand. I feel the pain in my being. I am the soul of a child that has never been born. Yet I weep for the life I lost. I weep for my mother, for all my family I never got to see. And I'm forever to be in this backyard for all of eternity. I have no name, at least no name that can be understood by humans. I am a baby in my depths, yet I'm as old as the mountains and trees to the point where I know them. And we are friends. I carry within me the spark of future generations. And the spark that will eventually burn down our entire existence. And the most simple fact of everything I know is that all of us just want comfort. All of us just want to know what it's like to be happy again when we are sad. And that is the journey of our existence.
Don't you understand? That's what makes me sad, because it's so tragic. I don't want to rely on drugs or sex or alcohol or anything at all. But sometimes there doesn't seem like there's any other choice. We all just numb ourselves down to a pulp so nothing is felt. Numbing ourselves is easier than comfort, and that's why I weep.
I can feel everyone weep. There is something at work in this country. Something that can't be understood yet. It won't be until you are long gone. And future generations will have to come to terms with what went wrong in this land. Do you feel the thrum of devastation? Do you feel the ghosts of invaders amongst you? The blood of your siblings soaking under your feet. The heads of our leaders rolling into their graves. I feel this pain, Ghazala, constantly amongst our country and our world. And sometimes even I wish to weep and wish for my comfort. Occasionally, life can be sweet, even if just for an instant. And you can cherish every second. You can forget about your pain and live your life waiting for the next instant.
Sweetness and half an orange after a sleepless night doesn't seem like a lot.
No. But in the grand scheme of things, it is.
Ghazala! Come inside!
She is waiting for you, my child.
I'm coming, Auntie.
And feel free to turn your videos back on. Please feel free to take a minute every time stay with us a little longer for a discussion on the project. While everyone comes back to join us, I'd just like to note that if you'd like, you can join our email list if you're not already on it. You can list your email address in the chat, or you can email us directly at freshlimesodaco@gmail.com. Or you can DM us on Instagram at freshlimesodaco. And stay tuned for the other two shows of the Theater's Catharsis series, which will be happening very, very soon. The chat was so wonderful and active the whole time. I'm so happy. Okay. Yeah, like we said, if you want, feel free to turn your video on. And let's get started with a little talk back. So Sabina, who was one of the performers, brilliant performers, as I mentioned before, we co-founded Fresh Lime Soda Productions in January of this year, and here we are several productions later, and we're just so happy with the reach that we've had and all of the people we've gotten to meet and work with in a relatively short amount of time. So Sabina, I can get started.
Yeah, and just a quick note is that, like, the cool thing about Zoom performances is that, like, interactions and, like, the chat and our discussion afterwards are equally part of the whole performative experience, because we all have the same, we're all looking directly into the camera, we're all the front row of the performance. So this discussion, we're really just excited to hear what people thought of the performance, what meaning they found, if there's any healing or space that they could make for themselves in the work. And yeah, we're delighted to hear all of your thoughts.
Great. So Sabina, should we ask the playwright Nilofer first? Nilofer is here, and we'd love to know what you think, Nilofer, of the show, and we'd love to know what inspired you to write this work and all the different characters and stories within it.
Yeah, so first of all, Fazeelat and Sabina, you carried the characters in a way that, like, I don't know how we're like on some other level, like all of us put this together, because like we didn't have to talk about everything, but we all knew what we were talking about, and we created this, beautiful performance. So just like we're all on this like other plane of existence when creating this. So yeah, so I'm Nilofer. I wrote the play. There's a lot of things that inspired me. I like to get into it. I wrote this play. Well, I first came up with the idea for the play in around April. And funny enough, it was actually during like a bout of insomnia. So it was like 3 a.m. and it just came to me. I was like, what if I like write a story about a girl who talks to different family members like in her life and what she's struggling with, because it's something I have done before. And I feel that the nighttime is a very like intimate time and a good setting for a story. And then I want to find a unique backdrop to my culture as well, because I'm Pakistani. So I chose Bhutto's execution and the military coup of 77 in Pakistan to be like the backdrop, to be the theme in the background. So that's the second part. And then the first part as well, the love story between Asal and Nishat. That was something else I came up with. And then originally the two were never meant to be in one performance, but both of them work so well together, both like different flavors, but they do overlap in many ways. And I guess the last thing was I wrote this play after I came back from a trip to Lahore, and that city is just magical, and just it has so much culture, and you really feel like all the things I described especially in the second act with the characters. So yeah, that was my inspiration.
Amazing. And Nilofer, jump in anytime during the rest of the talk. Sabina, do you want to ask Lucky?
Muted, and I wasn't muted during the performance, and I'm surprised that this question for Lucky. A lot of we're always very like self-indulgent as like directors, and we want to like talk about the like nuances of like the differences between directing in person and directing over Zoom. But this is actually your first time directing ever, and I'm curious what your experiences were directing this play and also over this particular medium.
Totally. It was very steep learning curve, but a really fun challenge. I mean, Nilofer had written 2 really beautiful pieces, and Sabina and Kanika had come to me to direct them. And one was talking to Sabina about, I was very nervous, and I was very much like, please, like, I'm going to share my thoughts. You let me know what you think. And in that conversation, there was an idea to bring them together. And I also, so Nilofer had sent us a draft of the play and then had sent us an updated draft. And in the original draft, in the second act of the play, there was only one scene, which was the first scene that you see with Ghazala and Roshanak, and then the other 2 characters were added. And we were thinking that it would be sort of magical and fit in with, a lot of what Nilofer and I had talked about in terms of the mysticism of the play, but also the magic in terms of what it represented and the cultural and personal significance it had to her. And there was something about having Fazeelat also, play all those 3 characters, both because of the form that would lend to the overall themes in the play, as well as, a chance to see Fazeelat's incredible range. So that was really where a lot of the creative ideas came from. In terms of bringing it to life on Zoom, a challenge for the ages. It was, very difficult, especially because this is such an emotionally intense and, hard-hitting play. And in both acts, for me, the two biggest themes in this play are trauma and love. And those are very difficult emotions to access through a screen, right? When you're in person, I think there's a chance to build an energy and feed off of that energy. And even when you look at the second act and switching between the characters, I think it's easier to access certain energies when you're in a physical space, and that space is carved out to hold those emotions and hold those energies. And so finding a way to build that space in Zoom was the real challenge. And, all credit to Sabina and Fazeelat, honestly, for being so up for that and also for being so into that. I think it took a lot of, pushing and pulling and a lot of, let's go this way with the characters, let's go that way with the characters to get to a place where, it felt feasible and also it made sense to what the play was and what we were trying to communicate. So yeah, definitely a different experience than I've ever had in more than one way, but very rewarding. And to me, the most important thing is that, Nilofer liked it. It's such a beautiful play. And that was really, a goal was to make sure that it represented what she wanted represented, especially since it was so close and personal to her. And so to hear you, Nilofer, also say what you had to say about the play is wonderful to hear.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was perfect. It was.
That's so sweet. This is off of Lucky, your last point about like carving out a space for the like tragedy and nuance of the play. And this is definitely something that we talked a lot about in rehearsals, and also Fresh Lime. We talk a lot about in discussing what kind of plays work over Zoom and what doesn't. And I'm curious, as audience members, what appetite do you have for comedies versus drama versus something in between the two? What do you like seeing over Zoom, and what do you feel like watching performances over Zoom is a different experience than watching performances in person genre-wise? Also, feel free to unmute yourself, talk. Anyone can go.
Hi. I'm just so happy that I got to watch this. Honestly, I'm like everyone was saying, like shook into my core. Beautiful poetic writing, the range of the acting. And as far as that question, I think this is the first play that I've actually watched through Zoom that was more emotional. And as we know about trauma and how comedic elements fuel in turn tragedy, in that sense, there's a mix of both. But this was definitely more emotional than the ones that I have seen before. And I think it was beautiful because, first of all the transitions, this is the first Zoom play that I've actually seen that had incorporated those transitions with the scenes, the musics, and also the background. And it really made it really immersive, to the point where a lot of people, and myself included, was saying I feel like I was there. I feel like I was watching it on stage. I think it was more because it was so emotional. I also, and it was on Zoom, I felt like it was more personal too. We were kind of even though we're not really connected because we're so far away, I felt connected because the chat, first of all, like you said, it's a different medium where we get to connect with each other, all these strangers, and share what we think about this. And I think I kind of like this. I want to see more emotional productions that touch on complex things, because we're as much as we're apart, this time we need that. We need that soul searching, and we need the not exactly light things to come up, because it brings healing. And the best Zoom things that I have seen so far that touch me deeply is because of the community healing factors, and because of things being more, direct, because we're reaching out even further because we can't be together. So I guess I don't really have a preference, but I will say this was my first time that I've like been deeply touched. It wasn't as comedic as other ones that I have seen. And it was like, it was like one of those wow moments, like when you watch something and then you have like, what does that mean? And that's what gets me excited about theater. So I loved it. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Oh yeah, was someone else raising their hand? Feel free to just jump in.
Sorry, that was me. Hi.
Please, please, please.
I want to echo what Karina said. I think it was wonderful, the transition and the direction, and obviously the actors did an excellent job. I like the format of two people working. I mean, I know it's not easy to execute different characters in such a short span of time, but I felt like that was really, it was an interesting way to view the play, especially via Zoom. And it would be, and also I loved the part where the orange was exchanged as well, and the way that was performed. I thought that was great. But yeah, I thought it was executed really, really well, and just the power and the emotion. And I think, as you know, South Asians, we've all felt that, like we're trying to talk to like an elderly person or someone who's drunk, and it's like, okay, it's the middle of the night and you're not understanding, this is very frustrating, please understand, right? Yeah. So I think kudos to bringing all of that emotion in. The two-person narrative was excellent, and then the transition, so well done to everyone.
Also, you're both Lahoris, so you have a personal connection to it.
I was in Lahore in 77 as a young woman, and everything was so close to my heart, so close to my heart. And your production is very, very effective emotionally.
It was
beautiful.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's my mother and sister. I don't know if they said that.
Thank you.
We did not.
My mother and my sister. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. It was just.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Very effective. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And we're excited to see more productions like this.
Yeah.
Well, that's high praise. If anyone else has any responses to that question, please feel free to jump in at any point or message in the chat, and we'll point directly to you next. But while we're thinking and reflecting on what we just saw, I'm wondering, in particular, what words or images have stayed with you in particular during the performance? And you can turn on your mic and say it, or you can just type into the chat what imagery, what stayed with you and what will stay with you.
I feel like orange. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was an extremely emotional experience, and I think it's gonna take a lot of thinking to unpack the whole thing to see how it all connects and works together. But tremendous performance, great, excellent.
And that's my father.
Thank you.
Was
someone else also trying to add?
I really liked the. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, like, I really liked the orange. It felt like a symbol of like the sharing of suffering. That's what it looked like to me. It was very beautiful.
Love that.
My little brother is watching with me, and he's a little shy for the camera, but he's wondering where the videos came from.
Lucky or Fazeelat or Sabina, any of them can speak to that.
Yeah, so there were videos and images, and this also I want to thank Fazeelat and Nilofer in the space for. All of the images were of Nilofer and Fazeelat's families, specifically their mothers and their grandmothers, or their mothers' families, which was really beautiful to have the opportunity to incorporate that. The video itself was just found archival footage from YouTube of either Pakistani old film, or like historical footage from the Lahore area, or for the older videos, it was never that specific. So from the Punjab region. And then they were ordered somewhat chronologically but yes, that was those were where the videos came from.
Was the frame named Leo trying to speak earlier?
Hi, sorry, that's me. I just wanted to say, like, everything was amazing, very beautiful, very touching. I also wanted to just particularly compliment Sabina on I don't know if they were like transitions, but like there was so much emotion in the scenes in between the dialogues between Sabina and Fazeelat, and very moving, very well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah, we're talking about inspiration, and during quarantine, Leo and I, she's one of my closest friends. We had a lot of very intimate conversations at 3 in the morning when she would come over, and honestly, that also inspired a lot of the dialogue you see here. Like, I know Leo would agree. We've like the times we spend at night, like just talking about our lives, like they get really deep and yeah. So definitely, it's a lot of real life conversations that like inspire the dialogue. So yeah, happy to see you, Leo and Simone.
Thank you. Great performances from Sabina and Fazeelat. I do want to props to both of you, but I do want to make a mention of Fazeelat's description, and that's probably the also kudos to the writer of the love that she had for the past love, and then the practical kind of love that she was sharing with a man who was impregnating her. So, and it was beautifully done. I appreciate it. I do want to say, as an older person, I can see a whole lot of young faces. As an older person, the chat annoys me because it distracts from my experience of enjoying a theatrical piece. And that's probably because Zoom is a new experience for me. I've been in the audience of thousands of plays, but not, watching this. And previously Ravayana, it was a different experience there, but the chats started to distract me so much. I was wondering how to disable them. So that's, as an older person, just to let you know, because all the attendees at these performances are not just your peers. So wanted to make that, I mean, you can't avoid it, but this is part of the whole experience. So thank you.
That's very valid. Thank you for sharing.
Good point. I feel like we should, at the beginning, when we're telling people how to like turn off their videos, we should add a note about also turn off the chat if you want to. This is how you do that, because it is true, it's distracting. Personally, I love the chat, but I'm also biased because I feel like people should be able to be on their phones, like in theatrical productions, and be able to like take photos and text if they want to. So I believe that's so strongly with my whole heart. I'll text you about it, but I love the chat. I think it's fun to see people interact, but it's also, definitely valid that it could be distracting. And it was really interesting, like having like acting and a little bit seeing the messages pop up below was a really weird but interesting and kind of fun experience. It felt very like we were like talking to each other during the performance, even though we weren't talking, which I think is something unusual as an actor. But I think it also is something where like when you're in an actual production and like person, you like kind of have this like communal response where you hear people laughing or sighing, and like because we can't see you and you can see the chat, it was really helpful as an actor to feel like you're in like a space with someone and you're like present with a bunch of other people. And like obviously we are based on this discussion, but yeah.
I played many ages today, babies and old people and young people, and I have about a decade on Sabina and Lucky, but I think the chat is an interesting element that I agree with Lata. I think I prefer it without the chat when it's a play like this, because I think it's nice to be able to just really be engaged with the play and not have any distraction, because what Nilofer has written is it has such incredible depth. I found that I really had to reach into very, very, very deep places in myself. I think I had to talk to some of my ancestors after consuming some legal herbal refreshments in the desert in California, legal in California. But it really is an incredible play, Nilofer, and I'm so grateful that Fresh Lime has given you the space to write it. So grateful that Lucky, Sabina, and I were able to collaborate and work on this. Unfortunately, I think that the divides in the subcontinent have forced us to forget how connected we are and how much we share. And I'm so grateful that I was able to collaborate as a Pakistani with my sisters from the other side to do this production. And I'm so grateful to Fresh Lime for that. And Nilofer, I'm so grateful that you dug so deep to do this. I struggle a lot to write performances where I've practiced a lot more. Writing is something that I struggle with. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate it, and I just appreciate everyone and the ability to bring this to Zoom.
Can I?
Oh, sorry for my father-in-law. I'm gonna try that.
Jimmy, I have precedence.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry. There was a lot in this play in terms of the individual, in terms of the political background, what was going on in the country. And I would suggest that, it's a suggestion that if you were to hold a session and try to connect the politics with what happened to the individuals and pull that whole social fabric together, that may be a very interesting discussion. Sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. I think it'd be interesting. I mean, what I was going to say, and it's sort of like continuing this meditation about what a Zoom play means, and also like in regards to what the chat means, is that, you know, when you're in space with other people, right? When we're actually in physical space with each other, there's an energy that's intangible, you know, that, you know, it's indescribable, that you feel when you're actually watching a live theater performance. Like, we don't need the chat in a live theater performance, because you know that feeling when you're seeing a performance and it's moving you. You can feel it collectively in a space. So in some ways, I think of the chat as like a way of us being able to tell the actors, even if they're not listening, but it's just like being able to tell everyone that's here, because the screen, you know, it takes something, right? It's taking away that human, like the actual human energy, you know? So it's a way to say like, hey, I love what you're doing. Like, I love what you're doing. Even if you're not paying attention to me, I love what you're doing. And so, and I think that's also interesting in terms of how like a Zoom play works, is that I think someone said it, it's like you're watching a movie entirely in like medium close-up, and the only eye line is directly to you. So it's incredibly intimate. And what it does is that it draws your attention to all of the other choices that you can make beyond blocking, beyond where your eyes are looking, because you're only looking in one place. And so all of a sudden costume choices become incredibly important. All of a sudden, like little things like the exchange of an orange become incredibly important. And then, you know, Lucky made this really beautiful choice to have this video transition, because how do you create a sense of scope? It's really hard to create scope in larger context. And so she made a really smart decision there in doing it. But I think it's like, Zoom is amazing because it just zooms in on the actors. Like, you are zoomed in, you know? And so like, you're gonna catch all these micro details that you might not if you're sitting 10 rows back. So I just think it's really cool. And it's, you know, it makes me think about, you know, in a world in which we can all be together, how we would do things differently with the things we're learning in this space.
And I do want to add to what I said, and Sabina, I know you want people to have that theater experience of, you know, being, or rather on being on your phone in a theater. And again, I'm I'm old-fashioned. I still have to get used to this new style of theater because for me, the actors are the ones I have to show respect to and to be engaged with them, not with each other. It's a community how should I say, it's an engagement of sorts, a community get together, but the actors are who I look at for my own to be moved in a way that's very personal. So that's why this becomes distracting for me. But again, I think that's something to be told to people. They can disconnect that setting and then be able to enjoy it without getting distracted as I did this time. But it was a great experience. I mean, I loved this play. So thank you, Nilofer and Lucky, but especially to the actors. They always get my deepest respect.
That's lovely and very fair. And I think, you know, we should definitely be leaving that option available to people, you know, whether they want to have that involved or not. So that's a really good takeaway. I do want to prompt you all with one more question about the work, and of course feel free to jump in at any time with your own questions or thoughts, but our director Lucky was particularly curious about this question too, is how do folks see all the different acts or vignettes as intertwined or in conversation with each other? Or if you don't, that's also fair.
That's what I was trying to address when I was earlier talking to Nilofer, because I think have is what Fazeelat was doing was bringing out all the emotions in the society at that time, and then there was this whole political background, and it was all connected because it was reflective of that society. Now the question is, was what the behavior of the various characters that were being played, how were they affected by the political environment and what caused them? So that is what I think pulls it together. And I'm sure it's a question which is, if explored properly, I can't unpack this thing. It's going to take brains much smarter than mine to do it. But I think if whatever unpacked would be, it would be very relevant to what's happening in the country today.
If I may, I had so many interesting conversations with Sabina and Lucky and Nilofer about this. You know, Nishat, the scene with Nishat and Asal is a scene of love. It gives you a little bit of joy and comfort before we get into the second act, the second play, the second section. But something that Nilofer, I believe you said to me, was that Ghazala, Roshanak, Rizwan, and Fravashi are all really parts of the same, they can be the same person. And I know when I was playing them, there were moments where I felt they could be totally interchangeable. But truly I felt like Rizwan and Roshanak had both gone through their life sleepwalking, like I believe many people do, unable to connect to themselves, who they really are. I think connect to nature, connect to the world around them. They were very isolated and numbing themselves. And I think Ghazala was very much on the road to doing the same thing as them. But I think what Fravashi represented was survival, a ancestral spiritual survival of the kind of being, the kind of energy that survives trauma and is able to hold it without taking their pain out on themselves and on other people. And that's why I chose to hide Fravashi's eyes, because even though it looks like she cannot see, I believe she can see further and clearer than anyone else in the play. So that was my interpretation based on discussions with everyone, in particular discussions, a few discussions with Nilofer, and of course, that's what the text said to me. I aspire to be, I think my path will eventually lead me to Fravashi, but currently probably exist between the others.
Yes, if I may add on to that as well, I think the conversation we had was that Ghazala, Rizwan, Roshanak were all the same people, but at different stages in their life, to kind of show the idea of intergenerational trauma in a single household. And I think also would show it from the very specific Pakistani experience. And I think the backdrop of the military coup like helps with that, because I think definitely in South Asian families and culture and people, there is a specific experience, but you know, every household has their trauma, and it's intergenerational, and at one point we all worry about becoming like our parents or like our grandparents, you know. And you worry about like if there's no way to escape that. So I want to show that with the three characters, the same person but in different stages of their life. Yeah, I liked what someone named Simon said in the chat, was that the first story gave like, it was a simple love story, but kind of gave hope. And right before the other act, which was a little bit more depressing, I guess. So I kind of like how we decided to do it in that order, because it's kind of not conventional, starting with like the hopeful and then going to the bit more depressing. But I think Fravashi is also used as a hopeful character in the end to kind of give Ghazala, the child, like some at least so she can rest for a while. But like she's learned a lot in the single night. But yeah.
Hi, I had a question. This is a different question, but I was wondering, as far as like the process of setting this up, how did you guys go about that? Because was this play like originally written for Zoom in mind, or was it created and then the Zoom, you had to talk about transitions, I imagine, and how that would look like? So like, how is the rehearsal process as compared to, you know, my very different acting on stage? And then another note I just wanted to give that I really liked about this play is how it weaved together, and it gave us that balance of joy, sweetness, and sadness, but like on a larger picture. But I also really enjoyed, I think, touching on the experience of Zoom versus theater, like in the place, is that sometimes like my attention span for Zoom is like so hard, because like I've been to performances where it's like 3 hours or like 2 hours, even 2 hours that might be like normal and like in a theater. It just is so different on Zoom. So what I really liked was the length, because it kind of, I find myself deviating toward like shorter things, but it wasn't like, it still gave the whole story. And I really liked that it ended, I'm like, it's done. Like I want to see more, but I was like, it was really sweet. And like, I love the length, because like I said, like with Zoom, it's like really hard because I'm always like sitting in your own home. You're not like always in the space that it's being produced. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, what about the process for the?
So I guess I can start. We'll go with like who I passed the script on to. So when in terms of like how I saw it when I was writing it, I definitely see it more when I was writing. I saw it more as like a stage production or as like a short film. So you know, maybe once COVID ends, once the pandemic ends, like we can talk about adapting the script to those things. So I still love to see that happen, because I feel like that's kind of the dream with this production. But yeah, also I really appreciate what you said about the length, because I worry that one of my flaws as a writer is that I can't write for length. Like everything I write is short, and I struggle a lot with keeping things like writing long passages. So I really appreciate that, that you like the length, because I was a bit worried about that maybe it was too short. But yeah, I did like how I think I was hopeful that the audience would get everything that they need to get out of it, despite it being a bit shorter than regular stage readings. But I think if Kanika and Sabina, I guess you two read the script after, so if you want to
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and say something really quick. Firstly, Nilofer, I think that actually it's very hard to write succinctly as a writer myself. And I think that there's so much power in being able to have all these conversations in the half an hour that the play was. So that's amazing, in my opinion. Yeah, so Nilofer had sent these works to Sabina and I at Fresh Slime, and we thought that, they were actually really perfect for a Zoom show, just as how they were. I think Nilofer added a few more scenes, a couple more characters in the middle of the process, and it seemed very fitting for now, which is what we're always trying to do at Fresh Slime. Is like, why is this conversation important to have right now? And so we definitely wanted to get it going as soon as possible, and Lucky was like the brilliant visionary that she is, and was able to like add all these multimedia aspects to it, and it just came together, I think, really well for a virtual show. Yeah, Sabina, Lucky, please add on.
Yeah, to add on, if anyone else is working on a script that they would love to send to us, we're always looking for new plays in whatever stage of development that you're in, whether you have a kernel of an idea about like South Asian vampires, or if you have a full script that you're interested in sharing with us, we're really interested. But yeah, I think this play worked really well over Zoom because I think that the length was perfect. I think that it was very well, it wasn't too dense in that it was like, I felt like I'm like leaving the play with like a hole through my heart, although there were some parts that were really sad, and maybe as an audience member you feel some type of way. But I also think that we have a lower tolerance and stamina over Zoom for watching a performance, right? Karina, like 3 hours is crazy. So I think that that it worked really well, and like when you sent it to us, it felt very much like it could be done over Zoom. And the fact that it's 2 actors also works very well, like visually and aesthetically. Watching something with 2 people is a little bit easier, I feel like, to conceptualize over Zoom, even though more characters is fun. And yeah, 3 hours on Zoom is definitely audience abuse.
Yeah, I'll say, so again, this was brought to me as, can you direct this as a staged reading? Personally, I think it's just, I find it very difficult to work on a product approaching it as something temporary or as something not complete. And so in handling the work, I wanted it to be as complete as possible. So when it came to bringing in multiple elements, working with Fazeelat and Sabina to develop some of the ideas, it just sort of took on a life of its own at some point. And I'm a very intuitive person. So whatever felt good, whatever felt right, whatever felt like it was working with the story and with what Nilofer had written, we went for. And so that was really how it came to be what it was today.
Just speaking to the rehearsal process, I feel because of whatever the age gap is or the skill gap is, like Lucky and Sabina are so much better at Zoom and the internet than I am. But also Lucky's vision with the video, with the lighting, with the backdrops. I actually have this backdrop because I couldn't use Lucky's beautiful backdrop because my computer is too old. So we had all sorts of I had to do a couple of things to figure out how to make these really beautiful ideas that Lucky had work. I was performing, so I don't know what it ended up looking like, but Lucky actually had this colorful thing playing when we were in the dark, which was, by the way, my bathroom. So this play was done in my bathroom and in my bedroom. My husband hasn't been able to go to the bathroom. Worth it. But the point is that, when we're doing this stuff on Zoom, we become costume, we become tech, we become light. Like, you're no longer just an actor. And that's where, like, you have to become innovative. Like, this is my bedroom wall. I've strung a rope and very carefully hung my mother's pulkari, which Ammi, I promise, is not getting damaged. But it was a very, very difficult process to have all of the elements come together. And I feel so grateful that Sabina and Lucky had these incredible ideas. I mean, Lucky's ideas with the visual element, also I think because she has such an amazing background in music. Lucky, by the way, is an amazing singer. I actually tried to get her to sing one of my parts because I just wanted to hear her voice. But the lighting, like that mood, I feel like this could be, I feel like Zoom is more like short live film than theatrical performance. It's a new thing, you know? And I think the direction that Lucky gave, all of the technical ideas that she had, it took it to a whole nother level. And it was a lot of work, but I'm so grateful that I was able to figure out ways to do it.
So related to that question and what Fazeelat's father said, did you all also have to do any, I come from an era when I knew Pakistani and Indian politics then as well as now. So I was wondering whether you all had to do the actors or even the director and the whoever else was involved, do study of the politics of that time. Because when I watched it and I enjoyed it because I could see the connection with the multimedia, with the other issues, but I'm wondering about people who don't know the politics then. I think I tried to separate myself from that and say, if I didn't know the politics, would I, be able to absorb so much and be moved so much? But I was just two questions, I know, or rather one question, but another was just my comment. So did you all do any study of the politics of the time till now?
I'll just say one thing, and I would love to hear from Nilofer as well, but I'm Pakistani, Lahore born, and prior to February of this year, I've been a journalist and a documentary filmmaker. My parents still live in Pakistan, so I know a lot of the history. I know that we spoke about it, Lucky, Sabina, and I during the making of the play. But something that struck me when I was doing this play is, as a Muslim and an immigrant living in America right now, it wasn't very hard for me to access what this play was saying, because there's a very good chance that November 3rd will feel a lot in America 2020, like many people did in Lahore in 1977. I think, art is so incredible, and Nilofer has done such an exceptional job in capturing how cyclical this kind of trauma is. Patriarchy and capitalism, not a good combo.
Yes, so adding on to, what Fazeelat said, I think Pakistanis do know about the military coup, and I think it's something because especially young Pakistanis now, we know our parents were born during that time or around that time, and our grandparents very much lived through it. And yeah, it also does relate to current times. We talked before the performance began, I think I asked are we gonna give a synopsis or context or anything, but in terms of my own, what I like in theater, I like kind of just making the audience just go straight into it without any background. So, but now that the play is over, just talks about the military coup of 77 in Pakistan. Essentially, Bhutto, who was the prime minister, was executed for allegedly he conspired to the assassination of political rivals. So General Zia took over as military leader and then declared martial law in Pakistan. And it's a very important historical event because he introduced Sharia law, and he also temporarily removed and changed parts of the constitution that were written during partition. And then it was a big switch in government, very similar to the Iranian Revolution. Although different circumstances, they also became an Islamic Republic around the same time. And yeah, you can look at this story in so many different ways. It relates a lot to current politics in the world, especially I think in India right now. And I think it's important as Pakistanis and as Muslim viewers and people, especially with the persecution of Muslims in South Asia right now, like it's hard for us to kind of, write about our history and write about how like these things always weren't around, like there was a transition period. And so so that's what I want to say about that.
As someone who is not Pakistani and not Muslim, I definitely did research. I don't know if this is true, but I feel like, especially when you consider this being a South Asian space, I feel like there is some generational awareness of South Asian history in our generation, like like young millennials, especially, as again, Freshline being a space where it's the diaspora exploring their heritage, exploring their culture and exploring their history, but also exploring that with other South Asians. Like for me personally, like that's something, it's been important to me to know about regional histories and histories of other cultures within the diaspora. At the same time, I think talking to Nilofer and Fazeelat about it and being able to hear their reflections on it and bring their personal histories to it, for me as a director, really gave meat to, I think, the way that I saw the play and the way that we approached even, character development and a lot of the creative decisions that were made.
Great. We do want to be aware of Zoom fatigue, but we'd love to, Asia, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, please feel free to comment, and then we're going to do a couple questions that were in the chat before and then wrap up, but go ahead.
Okay, perfect. I'll make it fast. So I'm in agreement with Fazeelat's dad that there's a lot to unpack here. And I'm not sure what I should say about the writing, because there is going to be a little bit of bias in terms of what I think about it.
It's my mom, my lovely mother.
It did remind me of some conversations we had in the middle of the night back in April. So that was really amazing to see. But I just wanted to make a comment about the direction. The video made me cry. I saw the video because I actually hadn't seen the writing, the play. Nilofer wouldn't let me see any of it, but she did share the video with me, and it made me cry. I saw it many, many times, and it made me feel so emotional. It is beautiful, Lucky. So you've just done an amazing job. And then the acting. I'm just blown away by Sabina and Fazeelat. I was so drawn to them. I really enjoyed the Zoom experience because I was able to just be in that space with them and just having them so close. I felt really close to them, and the acting was so powerful that it just drew me in. Fazeelat's costume changes and the many different forms she took were awe-inspiring, and Sabina's crying, and I felt her pain as she was going through this trauma, which felt ancient and eternal in many ways. I was just so drawn to both of them as they moved us through. I just felt that we were going through time and space, and it was really, really powerful. I loved it, and I'm planning on going back and watching it again.
Wow, thank you. And we don't mean to rush you at all. Please, you were the Playwright's parent. You should talk for as long as you like. Thank you for saying that. Also, we would love to do more with Nilofer in the future. That's the goal. Yes, we are very much Team Nilofer. There are a few questions that we want to acknowledge really quick. Lily asked a great one about, I think, like the moments in the transition further up. Lily, if you're here, you can feel free to ask it again, or I can read your question. And then, hey, Lil. And then Jimmy had a question about building the characters. But first, Lily, go ahead.
Great. Yeah. Thank you all so much for this incredible piece. I also, like many people, I was really taken by the moments, the transition moments that were perhaps born out of the platform of Zoom, but ended up feeling really integral to the play, Sabina's two moments. So Sabina, I'd love if you could talk a little bit about how that informed your character choices in building, what you discovered in rehearsals with Lucky, and then also in the actual performances. And then more broadly speaking, I'm curious how, we've been talking a lot about Zoom, the platform's influence, but I'm curious how, or if, Zoom and performing it here influenced the content of the play. Great.
That's a great question. And I think something that when I was directing Ramayana, I was really wary about was pauses. And I feel like in, a stage production in person, pauses are like this nice gift of like thoughtfulness and catharsis, but over Zoom they're really scary because it's like really intense and really intimate, and there's like a moment of closeness with the audience that sometimes feels good, but then like after 3 seconds can feel like it's too much. So I know during rehearsals we chatted a lot about pauses and like, when does this feel really intentional? When does it feel like it's an immense either burden or relationship with the audience that you wouldn't have in the same way in person, because you have all these other things buffering you, other things like that are barriers to closeness. So the transitions are really intense because it's a pause. It's like a break between dialogue, and also being by myself, it felt very intense. I think it was helpful that like I couldn't see everyone else's reactions as I was pausing. I think that would trip me up because I think I would be microanalyzing what I was doing. And also transitions were something we added in close to the end of rehearsals because, when we were normally running it, we would break apart the different scenes. We wouldn't usually, running through it is something you do closer to the end, the entire play. And also we would normally just kind of run through from one scene to another. We wouldn't take the longest of pauses, but we added these more elaborate transitions, not just as like breaks between characters, but also like to signify the tone shift. The orange one I really liked the best because I feel like it was so contemplative, and I'm curious I was surprised that, a lot of people are very receptive to the pauses because I think they are beautiful, but also I'm surprised that people didn't feel like uncomfortable in these moments of pause and like liminality really. But it was difficult as an actor because I was also definitely getting in my head about how people would feel about this moment of like nothingness, but definitely somethingness. It helped having something to do, whether it was crying or just peeling an orange, for sure. It helps like be doing something tangible. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but those are my thoughts on pauses and transitions.
Lucky, do you have any thoughts on those since
like Sabina said, they kind of came to fruition very much towards the end. I also am surprised and glad to hear people's reactions to them. I think again, as like a first-time director, that's one of those things where it's like the longer transitions with music, things like that, are one of those things, even with the video in between, where I knew that I enjoyed it and I liked how it fit into the piece, but I think there was like I had to like build confidence, I think, also as a director in terms of being like, okay, like I like this, so other people will like this. And so from that perspective, we were very uncertain about those gaps, or not gaps, but those stretches of time in between the scenes. But again, I think when we talk about this, I think of things like problem solving, but also intuitively. And part of that is I process a lot of things through music. And so for me, also the music that was used within the transitions were good. Very early on, Fazeelat and I had discussed using an azan somewhere within the play. And so when we were running it and we needed that time, that was when Sabina was crying. It worked really well, both in terms of establishing setting. It fit within the narrative structure of the piece, and then also it fit, the moment. And then with the other piece also, again, the first thing I did when I got the script before I think it might have been before we met or maybe after the first time we met, was I built a playlist of songs that just intuitively felt aligned with the piece and aligned with what I was feeling about how it would be realized. And so I just pulled from there. Yeah.
Amazing. I guess we can maybe close on Jimmy's question about character building for Sabina and Fazeelat. Jimmy, if you want to re-ask, go ahead.
Yes. How did you approach building your characters?
Sabina, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go? You want me to go first? Because the play, and I said this in the chat, like every single word has so much weight, and the characters are also incredibly just like they're themselves. I felt like I could really go into them. It was difficult, and I really appreciate having the space given to me by Lucky to get into those characters. You know, until the very end, I was really struggling with, because there's a costume change, there's usually a tech change, and then you also just have to get into another character. So there's a lot to take into account, and I really wanted to do justice to each of the characters. So it definitely pushed me to the limits of my performance and acting abilities. It took me a long time. Like, we've been rehearsing this for weeks. So it took me a long time to get there, but I really enjoyed working with two people who were understanding of the struggle for me and how I needed to get there. And again, the play is, I think, just brilliantly written. Every time I read it, I understand something different. So yeah, but the character building it's difficult. It was very difficult. And I'm glad I had the space and time to do it. I feel like I could, if this was people are like, oh, I'd love to watch it again. I'm like, we should just keep doing it. And then I'm like, wait, I'm really tired. Like, you just watch the recording.
I just want to note on what you're saying though, is because I also noticed like the costumes felt as much a part of the character as anything else. So I'm just curious how, kind of like, you know, look, with like the mise en scène of like Zoom, right? We only have this little frame. So it's like, how do you all pull in as much meaning as you can so that we can see who these characters are, I guess, is also what I'm trying to get at.
It's so true. And I feel like when I act, I'm like, the number one criticism that I get from directors is like, your hand motions are distracting. So I feel like I'm really like, Kanika knows this. I feel like, yeah, not being able to be as like physical and involved as you want to be is really tough. But I think that honestly, like for me, building out these characters, Fazeelat said it best, is also being able to be in rehearsals with Fazeelat and Lucky, where it was like a really trusting, warm space where I feel like I was really comfortable taking really creative risks that they would be really receptive to. Even if they disagreed, you know, I would feel comfortable in their presence being able to make these risks, as well as Nilofer and Kanika. Like, the warmth that you guys have really was how I was able to feel comfortable experimenting and playing around with this character and fleshing out hopefully like a full person.
To speak to that on two ends, I think in terms of mise en scène, like, again, it was very much like a feeling of like, this is what the lighting should be, this is what the backgrounds should be to evoke this period of time or this feeling or this setting. I mean, in the beginning with the lights playing across Roshanak and Ghazala's face, like this idea of them being in front of a TV felt very important to me in terms of, also, I will say I was very not determined, but I didn't want to use stage directions if we could avoid it. I didn't want those read because I felt that they would interrupt a lot of the emotion that was being created and all the energy that was being created. So that was where a lot of that came from. With the characters themselves, it was actually, as a director, very interesting because Sabina and Fazeelat are very different actors, and I think they require very different direction, and so that was always an interesting challenge. Like, we had one-on-ones all the time because not only are they different actors, but they're portraying very different characters that require very different energies. So even, you know, I felt like the emotion and the energy and the context of the piece was very cohesive, but the way the actors existed in those spaces felt very individual. I remember one piece of direction I kept giving Sabina was, be in yourself. This is a 15-year-old girl who's reflecting on a personal trauma in the middle of the night amid a lot of political chaos and a lot of emotional chaos. And she's, you know, interfacing with these characters, with her aunt, with family members who are still a little bit distant from her. I think in the way that I read the characters, they still were in themselves and were in their own trauma as well. And so there was an element of, you know, these are two people who are very, or in any given scene, these are two people who are very deep within themselves, who are coming together and interacting at this very specific, you know, time of night, in this very specific mindset, in this very specific, it's 1977, and we enter this with General Zia announcing martial law. Like, it's a very heavy place for the characters individually to be in, to direct to that with two very different actors. Like, again, like Sabina, we talked about this, like Sabina does a lot of comedy and she's very boisterous. And I think coming in, for example, I didn't really see Ghazala as that, but then talking to Sabina and working with Sabina, it was really about, you know, where can we find a place for this character? And I think we did it successfully, where there is this girlishness and this fun and playful quality that Sabina naturally brings as an actress in the character of this 15-year-old girl who is in this time and place in her life. And I think that worked too, right? Because that is also girlhood and that is childhood. And so, but yeah, then that process was very different from working with Fazeelat to develop the characters that she embodied. And so it was challenging, but it was fun. Yeah.
I'll just say one more thing about the character development, which is that I know Roshanak. Like, I lived with Roshanak in Lahore. She's a lot. I know Rizwan because I lived in Pakistan in my 20s, so knew a lot of 20-something-year-old men, a lot of alcoholics. So those things were very real to me. Fravashi was the most difficult, but there were two things that helped me immensely with Fravashi. One was obviously Lucky's direction. She said that the day it changed was, she was like, Fravashi needs to be done with a child's voice. And I was like, oh, okay. And I started working through that, and I would get it sometimes and I wouldn't get it sometimes. And then my husband, who's also a director, was trying to help me, I think yesterday, the day before the performance. And somehow I just thought, Desi Yoda. Like, that's how I was able to get Fravashi. So, because I have not reached Fravashi in my life yet. But that's another thing that helped me, references of actual people that I know.
Yeah, also when I was writing those characters, Roshanak and Rizwan, they're both, I see myself in a lot of them, especially Roshanak. She is, when I was writing this script and kind of this idea, I was, in many ways, she was somebody who I feared of becoming one day. So that's kind of my personal connection with Roshanak, even though I'm much younger than her. Like, I went through moments where I was like, oh no, like, I'm going through sad times, going through heartbreak right now. Like, oh shit, what if I become a person who's like a shell of the person they once were? And like, going down that spiral. And then Rizwan is also somebody I know as well. So many family members, so many people that like you just meet in life and you have these conversations with. So yeah, I'm really glad that Fazeelat and anyone else was able to connect to those characters and that they're recognizable, because that's important to me.
Great. Well, we're approaching almost 2 hours now, so we do want to probably wrap up. But thank you all so much for being here. We've recorded the event and we will be uploading it. And please send us an email or a message on Instagram or whatever you prefer if you want a link to that recording. I'm just in awe of Zoom. I mean, Sabina and Fazeelat have never met in real life. We've never met Nilofer. It's just amazing what can be done in this black box on our computers. It's amazing. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts during the talk back and for being here throughout. And please keep up with us. And we have many events coming in the near future. So look forward to seeing you then. But thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for coming.